So for those of you who are new to the water communion, this is a ritual that generally takes place at our in-gathering service. It's an opportunity to create this tangible image of the ways our lives are interconnected. So in preparation for this ritual, you've been asked to think about your journey over the past year and over the past few months in particular. Ask yourself, how has it been for you? What do you bring to this moment? What do you bring to this community, however you're connected? And you'll be asked to come forward, and as you pour an offering that either you've brought or you can use some of the water that's already here, pouring it into the larger bowl, ask yourself what you'd like to help manifest in this coming year in the context of this community in the larger world. And because there's so many of us, I'm going to ask that you do this in silence, just pour it in. Sometimes there's opportunity to share a story, but just know that you are contributing to the communal waters that create this thing that we have here. So Florence is going to play some ambient music. You're invited to come forward, just make a line, in whatever way, come forward. If you've brought water, you can pour it into the bowl there, or otherwise pour water that's already there, knowing that we are bringing the stories of our lives through this symbolic water that we are combining. And this is going to sustain us symbolically today and through the coming year. So, as you're ready. Now we know that those waters are carrying a lot. They're carrying joys, they're carrying tears, they're carrying adventures, they're carrying the stories of our lives over the past year. And it's those stories that create this community, that strengthen this community It's here in this space that we hopefully are reminded of who our best selves can be, and that's what we take out into the larger world. I have a blessing here for this water, written by Ranwa Hamni. This water is sacred. It is made sacred by the many hands that have poured it with intention and love, the many stories that each drop contains, the many lives surrounding it in this unique moment, connected by commitment and faith. This water is sacred. May it continue to flow through this community with shining reflections of the unique gifts that flow through each one of you. This water is sacred. May it continue to nurture this community with sustaining hope that we journey together through ripples of growth and change. This water is sacred. May it continue to bless this community with loving reminders of our collective responsibility to one another and the world. This water is sacred. May its ripples be a reminder that the changes and growth within this community bring movement and transformation to the world beyond our doors. This water is sacred. May its purity offer grace to our community and the willingness to forgive ourselves and one another when we make mistakes. This water is sacred. In moments when we are confused or uncertain, may it bring us clarity of purpose and commitment. This water is sacred. In moments when the reservoirs of hearts and spirits are drained by sorrow or pain, may it nourish them with the knowledge that we are surrounded by a deep and abundant love. This water, this community is sacred. So, welcome home. Welcome to a new church year. Just like the start of school, September seems to invite us to take on this new time of gathering again for this coming year. And it's so good to be with you. I mean, we are overflowing. We're going to have to think about how to address this. It's a wonderful opportunity for us, a wonderful place to be. It's so good to be reminded of the very many reasons that I was drawn to this faith tradition. There's much to celebrate and be grateful for as we gather together again. There's much to celebrate in the water ritual we just shared that reminds us that when we join together and share our stories, share our lives with one another, we become something more. We become stronger together than we are apart. One of the things that I am grateful for is that someone in my life shared with me what they loved about Unitarian Universalism. And then they invited me to come and check out what was going on in their congregation. Now think about this. How many times have you heard from someone new to this faith, I didn't know that UUs existed. What was it? What are you? Or somebody might have said, you know, I was a UU, but I just didn't know it. As some of you that resonates with? How many of you are glad that someone shared the good news of Unitarian Universalism with you? I'm going to raise my hand. Now, I know that some of you may have flinched from the words I just shared, sharing the good news. I grew up in a tradition in which it was one's duty to spread the good news and bring fresh souls into the fold. And I get that such language can conjure up an uncomfortable memory or emotions. But we do have a lot of good news to share with each other and with the world. And I'm committed to not letting others co-opt language that prevents us from truly celebrating and sharing the life-giving messages of Unitarian Universalism. We live in a world in which we cannot continue to keep the potential of this faith that we love a well-kept secret, waiting for others to stumble upon us. That said, I don't think that it is our job to knock on doors or proselytize. Rather, I think it's our job to live our faith out loud. It's our job to share with others what we love about this faith and its potential, because we are aspirational. We haven't achieved all that our principles say that we are. We are working towards that. But it's our job to share what we know, to live our principles as best we can, to invite our neighbors and friends to come and check out what we have going on here. So I want to share a story that I came across. Some of you may have heard this before, from Reverend Gail Geisenheimer, that I think really illustrates this idea of sharing the good news. She says, I was forthrightly evangelized into Unitarian Universalism. I was 38 years old, living in Maine, driving a snowplow for a living, and feeling very sorry for myself when a friend invited me to his church. He said it was different. I rudely refused. All blanking churches are the same, was my response. They say they are open, but they don't want queer folk there. My friend persisted. He knew his church was different. He assured me that I would not have to hide any aspects of myself, so I went. That first Sunday, I dressed so carefully. I spiked my short hair. I wore my heaviest, oldest work boots and my torn blue jeans and leather jacket. I bundled up every shred of pain and hurt and betrayal I had harbored from every other religious experience in my life. And I lumbered into this tiny meeting house on the coast of Maine. I expected to be met with fear. Instead, the ladies in the foyer welcomed me in and invited me to stay for coffee afterward. They never even flinched. They called me dear. I stayed for coffee, and I stayed for Unitarian Universalism. Over time, the good folk of that church loved up the scattered parts of me and guided me from shattered to whole, from outcast to beloved among many. They listened to me. We walked together and helped each other grow. The transition was not smooth or swift. This was during the 1980s. During the service on my second or third Sunday, a woman stood during joys and concerns to announce that all homosexuals had AIDS, were deviants who could not be trusted with children. And she went on for some time. As this member went on speaking, I tucked in my arms and thought about making a dash for the door. The pulpit that morning was ably filled by a student from the local seminary. At the end of the sharing, she made a brief comment to assure us that not all sentiments voiced that morning represented the whole congregation. I was at a crossroads. I left quickly after the service. Would I ever return? But I did go back. I was in the throes of learning my first lesson of being in covenant with a congregation. When we covenant to walk together through all that life brings, it means that when things get ugly, we don't walk away. Oh, we may want to walk away, but our covenant calls us to stick around and do our best to work things out. The following week, the regular minister was back. I tensed up when joys and concerns came around. Someone announced something like a birthday. I can't fully remember, but I vividly remember that one by one, folks stood up and awkwardly announced that not everything that was said last week was right or true. or representative of who they were as a Unitarian Universalist congregation. The crossroad had been engaged. The direction the congregation would take was being chosen. Our aspirations were unfolding, one voice at a time. One among them had used language that depersonalized and endangered others. She tried to create a class of lesser than human persons towards whom violence would be acceptable. The congregation gently refused to follow. But an even more extraordinary and wonderful thing happened. The congregation also refused to dehumanize the original speaker. They did not start calling her names. While that speaker tried to turn homosexuals into objects to depersonalize people she did not know, the congregation never referred to her in a way that was less than embracing of her full humanity. Now, if you ask me, this is just one of a million stories of good news that can be told about our chosen faith. This is good news worth sharing again and again. And I suspect that you all have your own stories to tell, and I hope that you will share them. Share them within this space and share them with those outside these doors. I invite you to be bold in your beliefs. Live your faith out loud. Ask your questions out loud. Find the voice that is true to you. Evangelize this good news in the ways that are true to you. And now it's time for our offering, some more good news.